Jeffrey Buntin Jr. is president and CEO of the Buntin Group, which is Tennessee's largest agency among the top 35 independent firms and an ADWEEK-recognized top U.S. shop. After graduating from Washington and Lee in 1995 with a degree in English, Jeffrey found himself early in his career with a love of the business. His father founded the Buntin Group in 1972, and Jeffrey returned to Nashville to start the strategy capability the agency still uses today, and in the process, embarked on a journey to acquire the firm from his father. Under Jeffrey's leadership, the Buntin Group has gained national strategic and creative recognition. Having led the shop now since 2004, the Buntin Group claims an impressive roster of national brands and boasts a number of accolades at all levels. Jeffrey was selected as the youngest judge ever in the National Addies, has judged the prestigious EFFIE competition, earned an Addie Copywriter of the Year award, and has been recognized by the highly coveted Jay Chiat Global Accounting Planning Awards and received the Silver Medal Award, the highest honor given by the American Advertising Federation. Despite all this, what Jeffrey says he is perhaps most proud of is that he has never lost the values he learned growing up on a family farm an hour outside of Nashville. Jeffrey and his wife Kemp have 3 children, and he is active on multiple boards in the advertising, educational, and financial sectors, and in numerous volunteer capacities. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Jeffrey Buntin Jr.
Thanks, Camille. So clearly the advertising industry gives itself too many awards. And I would say always remember that if you submit a bio about yourself, somebody's going to read it. So note to me, to you, make it shorter. Thank you, Amanda, for having me. This is impressive. I didn't know much about it. It's great to be here. Sheila, thanks for helping. Camille, thanks for the introduction. William, there you are. Thank you. And Swan, apparently I owe you some thanks for that great photo of me you showed earlier. And if you all weren't here to see that, for one, I'm certainly glad. I've got some notes and I'll try to put them down in a way that doesn't screw up this clicker. I have to say it's sort of surreal for me to be up here and back on campus without a party to go to, and probably a good thing. And I have certainly, while I put everything off, I've thought a lot about what I want to say, and I hope that at the end of this it's useful. And if it's not, I hope it's at least brief enough to get out of the way between this and the start of your weekend, which I know I'm the last sort of act standing between the two. But I'll talk a little bit. If there's time, I'll show some things. And then I really do like taking questions, so I'm happy to answer them at the end. I know this is streaming, which makes me sort of sweat. There's a chance that there's some people in Nashville huddled around our break room watching this. And if that's the case, I'm glad that they're taking a break to do it. You all should know that I'm allowed to be here because of how great they are. And I'm allowed to think about the topics I want to talk to you about because they stimulate my mind and my passion. So if any of you guys are listening, thank you. WNL, I don't know that you realize how special the seat you're in and the place you are in your life is. It took me a while to be washed in the extraordinary privilege and joy and opportunity and sort of community and energy that comes with this place. And I wish I had realized it sooner. And so I'm, in a way, scrambling to compensate for that and to try to give something back to that, because as days go on, the value of it sinks in more to me, and it's tangible and intangible, and therefore I can't articulate it perfectly, but I don't want you to take it for granted, and I do want you to sort of have intentionality about recognizing it. And one of the things that I hope you don't have happen to you is to regret something. I don't have regrets about my time here. I got a ton out of it, but I could have gotten more. And so don't let that happen. And this wasn't here when I was here, and maybe it would have kicked me in the fanny in a way that I didn't get it until a few years later. But keep your antenna up and sponge on the value and the values that are all around you in this place, because they are special. Specific to me in WNL, I would say 2 things. First, I was very fortunate to get in, and even more fortunate that they let me out, truly. I was class of 95, and I have been sort of loosely involved for a number of years. I was flying one day and seated next to a person, and it was not Southwest, so I had to go to the seat I was given, which was in the middle. I'm 6'4", so I usually avoid that. And I was going from, I think, Philadelphia to Nashville through Charlotte, and I sat down next to this person who had the window, and he was speaking, and I sort of let my eyes go over to his pad, and he was preparing remarks, and I learned that he was flying to Nashville, and then I learned that he was going to speak to an alumni base, then I learned that he was the president of W&L, and I was sitting next to him and had no clue who it was. That was the catalyst for me to, first he said, well, I'd like for you to come to this event. Of course, I had not read the mail, RSVP'd or anything. I did show up, and it was a motivation to then become involved in our local community. In Nashville, there are 330-ish alums there, and so hopefully you won't have to sit next to the president of the university to A, know who that person is, or B, get involved once you're out of here. I am honored and humbled and excited to talk to you, and I do feel some sense of responsibility to try to say something useful or meaningful, or at minimum that molds and motivates your passions, which I assume if you're here, there's no shortage of those. And if there are a shortage of passions about this, maybe you haven't looked at what the business is in a way where your passions have a place. I think that the business is welcoming of a number of different passions. And in fact, even if you're not an advertising, marketing, digital, social, algorithmic, analytic, DSP, creative, content, et cetera, person, you may be a religion major. The avenues into the industry are wider and more robust than I think they've ever been. So liberal arts have great momentum, I think, to show you the way. About the Buntin Group. Okay, I have to write this down. It was founded in '72 by my dad. He's a Sewanee man. I try not to hold that against him. So is my grandfather, so is my uncle, so is my brother, so are both my brother-in-laws. So I'm, proudly a general, and I get to sort of steer clear of those guys some days. I'm the oldest of three. I grew up strongly encouraged to consider other things. And so my journey into the business was by no means the sort of stereotypical Southern, second generation, hey, family business deal. In fact, for a lot of reasons that I hope you don't find out for 10 or 15 more years, it's damn tough to do this. And so probably out of protection, he wanted me to go elsewhere. Probably deep down, there was a desire that I might be exposed to it and like it. And I got exposed to it through a training program one of our group brand directors at that time put on, and I really was taken by sort of the energy around the business. Swan knows who that person is. And so I was told, and I wanted to give advertising a shot. I went to Chicago. I worked at Bozell, which is gone. It's now what you know as DraftFCB. And there were 180 of us, 60 of us were children, and they gave us everything to do, and they got rid of the layers above us, and it was sort of, if you screwed it up, we really didn't feel like you could blame us, and if we did a good job, it was sort of certainly not to our credit. So it was kind of a protective and also wild place to learn and become inspired by what the business is. And so when I got there and realized I really liked it, and I had already screwed up a bunch of stuff and done a few things well, I knew it's what I wanted to do and would have wanted to do whether I'd been around it or not. And my now wife, Kemp, then girlfriend, went to Nashville and said, oh, look, I was going to Nashville whether I'd ever met you or not. So, go take another job. I wanted to do one more tour. I had an opportunity to go to Fallon in Minneapolis. But when I knew I wanted to be in the business, rather than that detour, for her, and also it was kind of like time to get back to the company that at least had our name on it. And so I came back into the business, and my journey's been one of primarily strategy and writing. And Marshall, is that your name? It's very similar to how I hear you talk, which inspires me. I think you're sharp, man, and what you're talking about really makes sense. It's a little bit like looking in I'll call it the side mirror, not the rear view mirror. But my dad came to me after I'd been there some time and said, if you want to be here, it's time for you to buy this. And that's how I grew up. And he said, don't answer me now. I'll be back in a week. I'll never forget it. And I came back and I said, he's pretty intense and way more type A than I am. And I said, I'd like to do that. And he said, are you sure? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, I'll be back in 2 days. Came back in 2 days and I said, I'm sure. And so we had the agency appraised and went through the normal transaction as if I weren't his kid, and I acquired it and have been running it since '04, and I own it. And so there are 110 of us. We're primarily in Nashville, although we have staff in Indianapolis, Minneapolis, and Detroit as well. We're a $150 million agency, past 5 years, about $650 million in media. So we're still a very media intensive, and now it's channel, and I'll talk about that, channel intensive shop. 25 million of those dollars in the last 2 years have been global. So we're running global work out of Nashville. 90% of our work, according to the latest employee survey we just completed, is digital or involves digital work. So, I'm passionate about a table tent. If that will solve the client's problem. If it's all digital and no sort of traditional, we're also passionate about and capable to do that as well. We have exploded in the content space. 380 unique pieces of content per month are coming out of our agency for 9 national brands. And I'm probably most inspired by watching that take off and riffle throughout the rest of the organization. Camille read all the awards, which make me shy and embarrassed. We have something called AdHope, which is sort of a volunteer / pro bono and now an emerging sort of cause branding practice. It's interesting, I haven't heard that talked about today or yesterday, but social value, social currency, cause branding, we see as an explosive part of your future, and so we're studying hard about getting into that space. We're in Nashville, which means I've done 2 classes like this, not classes, but talks at Vanderbilt. One was terrible because I over-prepared, and one was really good, I thought, and so did the class because I was sort of off the cuff. This is probably somewhere in the middle. What I would like to try to talk about is what I believe in and how it affects the work I do and how I think about your futures. I've spoken at my high school, and next week I'm speaking to the 2nd grade class of my nieces. So I'm on a 7-year-old to 23-year-old interested in advertising, we think, speaking tour, which probably means my bald head and my over-the-hillness are starting to catch up with me. You guys not only make me feel old, but listening to you also makes me feel sort of underqualified. And the precision and the capability and the expertise and the knowledge and the specialization that you have within your sectors or your roles or your careers or your agencies is mind-blowing. There's some things I haven't heard anybody talk about. And so I'm glad I chose what I chose because I think it's maybe the connective tissue to connect some of the disciplines that I've heard you guys talk about so well. I think I want to talk about the sort of sphere of what those plug into in other parts of the client's organization. All right? When I was asked what the topic of my presentation is, I did what I always do. I put it off. And don't be a person that does that. I'm so bad about it. If they're listening in Nashville, they're laughing. I mean, I'm really horrible. And so I put it off because I do that anyway, but there were so many places I could take my remarks. And so I put things on tumble dry in my head. And it was just up there, and I want it to be sort of wise and cool and impactful and meaningful and sort of, I'm a story builder, teller, so how do I pull these threads together? And I had a meeting at my son's school, he's in 7th grade, and my phone buzzed, and it was my assistant, Erin, hi, if you're listening, and she said, Jeffrey, they need 2 things now. The program's going to press now. They need a jazzier bio, and they need your topic. And so I first thought my bio was pretty jazzy, already. I get the pictures aren't very good, but I thought the bio was decent. I judged the National Addies as the youngest person to ever do that. Been recognized with the Jay Chiat Award. They awarded 9 the year we won, and only 7 of them were, 9 awards total. They were global. 7 recipients, because 2 agencies won 2. I'd been a copywriter of the year. I'd bought a business, grown a business, done all the stuff that Camille read. And so I've even got alumni who have gone on to do impressive things sitting there in the 3rd row. And so I thought, I don't know how to jazz this up. Maybe jazzier means deeper or more personal. And so I added to my bio the part about growing up on a farm. And I will come back to that in a minute because it is absolutely one of the top 3 driving forces in the way I think about brands and people and what we do and what you all have the opportunity to go do. Okay? That bio adjustment then, because I was out of time and walking to this meeting and you all were waiting to print a program, also made me say values at the crossroads of where we've been and where we're going. And so bad news, I got sort of 3 buckets I got to get into. I got to get into the values, I got to get into where we've been, and I got to get into where we're going. And so I'll try to do all those things. My view is that the values that you hold dear as a person will do as much or more to affect and inspire your success as your skill sets. And you are in a place, I feel, I have experienced, uniquely qualified in W&L to give you both. To give you values and also to give you skills. And it takes both to do all you're going to be able to do, but lots of the panels and lots of the jobs and lots of the positions and lots of the training and lots of the talk and lots of the capabilities are about skills. They live on a foundation of values, okay? So I'm going to give you my top 10 values I think you should think about in taking the next step that I feel the industry can take. You're at a university, you're in an environment, you're around people, you're headed into a network where the values, it's kind of a weird, squishy word, but they are a huge part of the currency of what should be molding who you are as a person. And I think, therefore, will mold you into great creative people, great channel people, great inventors, great leaders, great brand managers, great clients, etc. Where I see things going is really wherever you as a generation decide to take them. I'm too old to have a say in that. I work as hard as I can every day to dream about it and to bring that to our clients, but I really think it's up to you. And I think you will be the ones, not who rewrite the old rules, but truly write the new rules of what it takes to create and become a great brand. All right? And so that sort of word is what I want to talk about. It to me is about three things: authenticity, importance, and brands need to be important and they need to be endearing. Okay, and so we work on importance, authenticity, and endearing qualities of brands, and I have spent my career sort of studying and helping clients participate in what I think that is. If you step back, our paints and brushes in building brands are mostly familiar with some new ones thrown in there. Okay, and this is not to knock the revolution in new ways to do things that have happened in our industry. They're fabulous, and this room is full of people who are already great at and going to be the leaders in where those things go. I would say, though, they're all still communications. We've changed the vocabulary from, hold on, I got to find my notes. From creative to content, from research to insights, from measurement to analytics, from media to channel, from delivery to engagement, from traditional to digital. We've moved the words and we've moved the skills and we've moved the capabilities, but they're all still really tools for building communications. All right? That's still the canvas we're all painting on. My hope and invitation to you is to change the canvas to an experiential canvas, is to really be the generation that leads organizations and brands to create custom experiences for people. And I think we talk like that, and we're certainly talking about that and getting better at it as an agency, but the paradigm revolution that needs to happen within the industry and within the client-agency relationship, no matter what the agency does, has to evolve in a deeper way for experience to replace communications as the currency of our work, okay? And so I look at that. It probably sounds abstract. I look at that as a huge opportunity for you guys. Here's what I haven't heard anybody talk about. I haven't heard anybody talk about the sales force. I haven't heard anybody talk about the franchisees. I haven't heard anybody talk about the training program. I haven't heard anybody talk about the manufacturing facility. I haven't heard anybody talk about the R&D process. And so when I think about creating experiences for clients, and I think brand is the tool that can do that job, it's about thinking and relationships and ideas that bring those different factions together in new ways. And so we are driven by mastery of these slices of our pie or slivers of the slice of our pie, and we have to be that. But the whole pie is the full experiential proposition of the brand or of the client or of the organization. And so I would say, in addition to saying, what can I do after 6:30, ask if you can go ride with the sales force. Okay? Ask if you can go meet the factory workers. Ask if you can go understand R&D. Ask if you can go peek at how the company is going to allocate its capital. The curiosity for you guys, while your mastery has to be in one slice, your curiosity absolutely better be whole pie. All right? And it's interesting to me that's, and I know it's the ADLIB conference, but the pie is about these different functions because the consumer is going to experience the training and the innovation and the franchisee's behavior way more importantly than they're going to experience the digital unit, the social unit, the ad unit, et cetera. Those things, those behaviors are going to really mold their engagement with, their loyalty to, their support for, their advocacy for any given brand. Okay? I'm supposed to be on page 2. Clicker. This is a horrible graphic that I love that we use. We just moved into a new office building and we made hats. We called it New Digs. And so this was we moved out of a building we'd been in for 38 years. So we've had tons of stuff saved. So this was an original illustration from a workwear client from 1979. So I used it as the sort of art for our new digs move. And I think we dig deep as an organization. We dig down into sort of soil where we think true innovation and new thinking lives. We also work hard together. And so I might have a shovel or a sledgehammer or a Twitter or a table tent or an outdoor board or a strategy or a relationship manager, but we're all sort of swinging these tools in sort of a rhythm of community, culture, and also depth. All right, so I meant to click that 5 minutes ago, but there it is. I would invite you to create a new canvas where experience and message come together. Okay, I really would. I want those silos under your leadership to come down in favor of a new and more fertile model that grows brand experiences from the ground up. I think we catch a lot of clients who want message to fix an experience, or who want message to go alongside an experience. I want the experience to be first and everything else to circle it. But the world's not quite built that way yet, unless you catch a startup. Okay, and I'm envious of some of you West Coast guys. I feel like you get this. That stuff takes a long time to get to Tennessee or Indianapolis or Minneapolis or Detroit. But if you can create a new model of circularly working together to really shape and hone the experience of the organization, not just for the consumer, for the employees, for the investors, for the factory workers, for the franchisees. There are all these human experiences that click together and to start to create a behavior of an organization. And that is the currency for success. And then we'll socialize it and digitalize it and searchize it and algorithmize it and all those things. But if the experience can be shaped by your talents and your passions sort of together as you go into the next 10 years of how I look at the business, you'll have changed it in a way that's necessary. I believe that. We talk about, okay, that's the topic. We know that. We talk about experiences are greater than messages. And so I think about what we do as a company is really, we're doing any one of four things around that: listening, translating, activating, and optimizing. And so we have brand management and digital and content and channel and production and all those. We have all those departments, and we have great people who do them all extraordinarily well. It bubbles up to four things: listen, translate, activate, and optimize. And I think of the functions of our organization and of any organization, as far as I can study it, as being sort of those four things surrounding that proposition. All right. If the message gets more important than the experience, then you're probably in for trouble, because you're falsifying something that you can't manage if you're in this sort of slice of the pie that we all get put into. All right. So we talk about being an everything speaks agency. All right. And it's, not to sort of, our creative product, I think, is fantastic, but it's sort of McKinsey meets creativity meets activation. So we hold strategic thinking to help build the client's business in pretty high regard. I talk about the 20-minute CEO test. If you guys get stuck on the elevator with the client CEO, what do you want them to think about you and say about you when the door finally opens, when the fireman gets it open? You want them to think and say, we need that person and their company in our top 5 list of people we go to when things are either really great or really about to go to hell. All right? And it's a great litmus test for you to put yourself up against in your study and in your sort of intake of the world around you. The client business is ultimately what this is all about. And so there are lots of ways to consume that and keep that fresh in your minds as you do your work. But I would say, don't forget it. And so when we talk about everything speaks, it's really getting everything to speak back to this sort of essence, authentic, endearing, and important essence of an organization. I hope that makes sense. Let's see here. The strongest brands today, I believe, are strong not because of their message, but because they behave in full accordance with their values. So I talk a lot about Patagonia. I ask people, what's your favorite brand? If you ever interview with me, I'm going to ask you that. And it's funny, then people ask me and I can't answer them. In my 20 years of doing this, I've watched what drives people's answers change from advertising to the way they experience the brand. And so to me, in Patagonia, in Zappos, even in Yeti, it's probably the weakest of the three. I've heard they're about to take Yeti public. They're not winning you over because of their advertising. They're winning you over because they behave in full accordance with their values. And if they don't, somebody calls them on it. More often, these do, and so people amplify that for them, all right? And so I find that powerful. As I say to our team, we're in a race to put ourselves out of the ad business, and we can't move fast enough. All right, and now I just stream that to whoever's out there. I believe that. We make a ton of advertising for clients, but it is way later after we've tried to articulate sort of the inner voice of the client's organization and then start to architect the experience around it. All right, so beneath all the trends and technologies and models for marketing that you all are masters of and the panelists have been great about, there's a deeper sense of values that I want to try to get you to think about as you go forward. And I should disclose that I have no rightful expertise on this topic. I really don't. I had to send in something. Time was up, and I think about it all the time. And to the degree that's helpful, I hope it is. I certainly believe it in what we're doing with our organization and what we're talking about with clients and what we're talking about talent to try to come join us. So let's see what's next. This is the mission of our company, okay? And we moved here 3 years ago, building Everything Speaks brands for an Everything Speaks world. It's always on, no hiding, everything's on the surface. So the world around us sort of doesn't give us the option of just being over here and not over here. We need to be all slices of the pie. So we made that our sort of mantra, okay? We set it as a bar for two things, our culture and our product. I haven't heard anybody talk about culture either. And that's not worrisome, but also something I want to bookmark for you guys. The cultural impact you can make, it has nothing to do with the title on your business card or at the end of your email signature. You can come into any organization right off the bat and positively affect and probably change for the better the culture. And most of our industry needs that and is desperate for it because it becomes political, negative, incestuous, insecure pretty fast. And so to the degree you have a positive, passionate approach to your work, in addition to staying after 6:30 and asking what you can do, in addition to riding with the sales force or going to the factory, think about yourself as relates to the culture around you and bring something positive to it, okay? We took our eye off that ball for a few years, and when I got our eyes back on it, starting with yours truly, the power of it and the joy that comes from it is palpable. It will make the product better. So I was in the bathroom earlier, there were 3 paper towels on the floor. I picked them up, and it's just because that's part of our Everything Speaks creed. It's like all your behaviors, all the subtleties, all your comments, all your body language, all your words to a coworker, all your checking in to say what I can do is a cult. In addition to inquisitiveness and innovation and energy and ideas and collaboration, those are all qualities of being, for us, Everything Speaks. Just to get our sort of essence right, to dare to say we're going to then try to do that with client organizations, okay? We saw a huge, I love the 2 or 3, there's 4 or 5 people who went into the workforce in 08 or 09. What drove us here was client CEOs and board of directors saying, we're not going to worry about what our message is because we're not going to spend the money. We're worried about who are we. So there was a recession and post-recession humility, change, sponginess, interest from leaders of companies for help on articulating who they were. And I think a lot of those leaders were also thinking about what their personal legacy was going to be, because it got close to going away or being a legacy they didn't want. And so the millennial collision with that leadership psychology created a pocket where not what's our message, who are we? What are our values? Why are we here? What do I owe the people who entrust their career or this chapter of it to my business from 10 to 8? What do we owe them? And then how do we get them to owe the right things out to the consumer? And so we put this on the board as a smart way to leverage sort of what our values are and what our capabilities were to start to fit into that space. And we got good at articulating it. I call it, we unlocked the inner voice. And then We got asked to work on stuff I'd never done before. Like, how should our call center function? What should we say when a person calls in with this problem? What should our sales force be? How do we sell? Now, obviously, we got to do a lot of marketing communications. But the permission slip changed from one slice to more slices of the pie. And the taste of that in your mouth is amazing. So I'm not saying rip off my mission, but think about the world beyond the marketing. And I think brand is a proxy for the organization's behavior, right? So if you feel that and you're good at that or humble enough to think about that from all angles, then everything can be in your sandbox. All right? We try to create experiences. This is a huge work in progress for us, but we're starting to get certain aspects of it right. The past 2 years, we've defeated in new business pitches agencies that work for these clients. Okay, and I respect the hell out of all of them. And maybe we caught them on an off day, but I think they just caught us on a normal day. Okay, because we turned a corner that hopefully we'll keep going. Some metrics, because I know we love those. 2016 at the Buntin Group was 10 new clients. 20 internal people were promoted. We hired 30 people. We grew our top line number 40%, okay? And we're independent, and so I don't have to report that to anybody other than me. I can make that report, in my bed at night. But to the degree that we all like to win and measure and feel good about what we're doing, those are pretty solid numbers. So I've tried to be a student of the values that I feel are beneath that trajectory, and also then to seek them in people coming into our organization, and really to seek them in clients who are looking for a partner, all right? Nobody in this room is for everybody. And so fit is critical, all right? So here we go. 10 values at the crossroads of where we've been as a communications industry and where I hope you're going to take us as an experience industry, okay? And I know my PowerPoint skills are really good. First value, no person is small. I grew up on a farm. I spent from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. in the summers at the barn every morning in our dining room and around constantly what I would call just regular folks. And some of them couldn't read. They all worked hard. They were all part of our family in a way. They were part of the land that had grown 6 generations of our family. And this sort of, my brother coined a phrase, silver spoon, brown shovel. I'm usually the word guy in our family, but I thought that was a good one. So while we were privileged, we were also real and relatable and appreciative of all people from a very early age. And so I went to Chicago and I went to this agency and they put me on the 27th floor, and I'd spent my life sort of working with and appreciating Albert and Ernest and Jake and Lonzo and all these people who were my heroes in a way and still are. And I went to Chicago and I looked out my window and everybody was this big. All right? And we had this strategy brief. And what we were doing is we were just making shit up about what mattered to those people who were not only literally this big in our eyes, they were metaphorically this big in our eyes. And I hated it. It struck a nerve and sort of violated a part of me that I feel is really important, which is we didn't just sort of lose insight into those people, we lost empathy. And so this idea that no person is small absolutely includes diversity and inclusiveness, but it's about empathy. And you can't get there behind your computer. Swan's thing was about videos we made him go do. It was to go out there and experience the people that matter in a personal way. At the end of everything that's been talked about, there's one human being who's going to consume something. And I know last click, first click, we're doing that too. And DMPs and somebody thankfully knows a lot about that. I want to know the most about the human being whose finger did that. So don't forget that, all right? It's hard to do. We juggle more balls, we maneuver fragmentation, we embrace data. You can't lose sight that there's a human being at the end, and they're not small, they're giant. Top of our creative brief, which we call a brand work plan, because it's a one brief that everybody circles. Channel works off of it, creative works off of it. Content's not a creative brief. It says this: put yourself in the shoes of the person, feel what they're feeling, then you'll know how to engage the brand. It's at the top, in the template. If I see one in the office and somebody's blocked that out, I go nuts. I don't go nuts, but I don't like it. Okay? No person is small. 2, and they go together, reject labels. The more distant we get, the more we want to tidy things up by giving them labels. We create sweeping bumper stickers that are broad stroke definitions for entire segments of generations of people, millennials. I get that we need to be versed in that and we may need to be experts in that, but I would ask you to reject that as the truth about people. Okay? There is something deeper. You need to go down and find your own view or your own more intimate understanding of the human being. You're designing your piece of whatever slice of the pie. Who is this person? All right? Authentic and highly personalized experiences cannot be built around labels. I saw the chief brand officer from Coke speak at a conference this summer, and he's the guy that did, the label said Swan or Jeffrey or Matthew or Sally, and he talked about the way they created that, and they didn't run any advertising with Wieden and Kennedy until they'd already seeded it. And to me, it was the high authenticity brand creating a highly personalized experience every time you bought one and gave it to somebody. And he told the whole story, and I really give him credit for that. And his job, as he said, was your job if you get the chief brand officer job at Coke is just don't be the guy that screws up the brand. Don't do new Coke. Y'all don't even know what that is. But it's one of the world's biggest, most decorated, most emotionally powerful, consistently leading brands that got real personal because they didn't do it through a big label. And I applaud that. Third, when your moment comes, and this isn't a Cialis ad, take it. We worked for a bank in North Carolina that got acquired by RBC, Royal Bank of Canada. It was their foray into the U.S. banking marketplace. And we were the regional agency for the regional bank that got bought by the 5th largest global financial institution, RBC, Royal Bank of Canada. And the chief brand officer, who's a friend now, Jim Little, was flying in for his first meeting with all the, bank muckety mucks. And the CMO at the time, who's also an acquaintance, said to me on the phone call the day before the meeting, which we didn't know about, you could come to this. And it wasn't, please come. It was, you could come to this. And I said, we should come. And so I went with a colleague. Horseshoe table, classic banking conference room. And Jim sat over there and all these VPs, SVPs, all risk management, all segments, all great people, all the way around. And I was the last kid at the other end. This was probably 10 years ago. So I was within spitting distance of you all. And I said, in Canada, and it was everybody's, I don't know what the question was, but I thought, I better say something or we're done. We're done. So the BBDO Canada. I said, in Canada, you're the leader. In the US, you're a challenger. So I don't think it's what we stand for. I think some of the success may be in figuring out what we stand against in this marketplace. And Jim said, see me after. 2 years later, we were doing all their golf marketing, all their capital markets marketing globally, all their wealth management marketing globally, and their treasury and investor services marketing. And they were spending the equivalent of about $55 million a year in the US and abroad. And we earned it. And it was because, of that. And so you'll be on a plane or you'll know a person or somebody will be going around a table, or don't stay quiet and email that thought to the person later. So what this says, and I think it's fun, so I'll read it. One of the greatest experiences of my career came because I leaped through a closing window. Don't stare at the wall if there's a window. Go through it. Okay? Value 4, see what's in common. Data is driving us down into tiny nooks and crannies of insight. And I feel the industry is becoming obsessed with what makes things different. It's a contest now. It's a game within our own team. And I think we do it well. And I know I found something that's different that you didn't find. And so what we do is we wind up going down further and further and further into the points of differentiation and delineation. And then we mine those to create something that is often good. But what I worry about is that somebody's got to see where the overlap points are. Okay? Because the overlap points are what have greater emotional common denominator potential for people. And so I would ask you, as you're mastering down into the finite minutia of the last click or the second to last click or this sort of, if they click with this finger versus that finger or this time of day or that time of day, there's some commonalities in all those, that patchwork of differentiation. What are the heat map commonalities? And I can tell you it is a skill and I feel a curiosity that's being lost. Mind the common to do the uncommon. Okay? Used to be what made people go, wow, did you see that ad? Now I think it's what drives social sharing of content, really. If you can find the most powerful emotional common denominators, the experiences that you create will be amplified for you because they'll take off. Somebody will want to share them with other people. But not if you miss the commonalities. Must be present to win. Somebody's on their phone in here, somebody's phone's buzzing and they're curious about it, and so we're leading our lives, I think, and now I'm going to sound old and I'm not meaning to, our heads are down as human beings. Look up at life, okay? Make time to resensitize yourself to your authentic surroundings because we are being desensitized to them. Nature, relationships, reading, paper, pens, things drawn with paper and pens. You can't create experiences for brands if you can't receive experiences in your own life. So we need to be able to let that stuff in, okay? Most folks out there aren't as head down as the people making the stuff that goes out to those folks. So not all the time, but I've been impressed walking around campus. There's a lot of eyes up, and I know we have a speak to each other thing here, but out in the world, my posture's terrible, but we're sort of leading life like this. Had a client get hit by a car in Toronto because she stepped out in front of traffic. Killed her. Experience life. Okay? Who worked at Martin? Where'd you go? Twitter. John Adams is a friend. I don't know if he was the CEO when you were there. So they're a friend agency of ours. So he said to me this. He didn't say it this way, but he said, we're trained in our industry to find what's wrong. We build enormous muscle to identify the flaws in something so we can fix it for our clients. Think critically, but don't live your life critically. And this is probably me talking to me. We get so into identifying what's wrong so we can be the saviors of the brand or the saviors of the campaign or get that agency out and let us in. But if you take that home or you take that into your 20s and 30s and 40s, you will go through life sort of seeking out without meaning to the flaws in things and you'll miss the wonder. And so we got to be great at sort of problem resolution, but problem containment in the way you approach your world, I think is really important. This is where I embarrass myself. I keep this next to my sink to remind me to sort of approach the day joyfully. And this is a Smurf, and I played with these when I was a kid. All right? I think at times, and it's sort of in the story of the ad industry, the biggest ideas have often come from sort of dark, highly talented, irascible, mean, stricken at times, locked away creatives. And it was this individual sport hunting down something huge and sweeping, and it was driven sometimes by a dark force that drove creative brilliance. On an experience canvas, you cannot work that way. You all have the role of joyfully, positively creating experiences in collaboration. And so, work joyfully. All right? And diagnose, but don't live that way. All right? Leadership equals doing. We talk a lot about adaptability. It came up in the last panel. It's, to me, the code of success for today. And years and years and years ago, success was who could go sort of physical prowess, who could go hunt something down, kill it, bring it back to the cave. And then centuries later, it was about network. Who did your family know who they could help you get into a position? And then it was about intellect. Who was the smartest who could invent something? And so, Bill Gates got to be worth whatever he's worth. Now it's about adaptability. How do we sort of veer and move and mold our own behaviors and the behaviors of a team according to all these sort of things that are slinging around that change? There is no normal day, that change all the time for all of us in our careers. And I think the point here is that it's about doing. It's not about presiding. It's not about thinking. It's about helping teams understand how to act and do things and take action as opposed to waiting to see if you could perfect the action, oftentimes. Okay? I would say to build a brand experience model, reject perfection, act and adapt constantly. I'm getting there, y'all. Belief is greater than knowledge. I love the client partners that allow us to participate past what we know and out towards what we believe. Okay? They don't all do that, and it's harder and harder to find ones that are okay with that, and it's therefore I don't want the sort of the thing in the middle of those two words to start to point the other way. Knowing a lot is critical, but believing in your beliefs is powerful also, and I would say more powerful. All right? We have a board member at the agency who says, if you can't see the invisible, you can't do the impossible. And he flew fighter planes off of aircraft carriers and raced cars for a living and was the chairman of a huge company later. So to me, it's about experiences require us to believe that we're going to create, what we're going to create may be less measurable but more meaningful. All right? And so I would say embrace those beliefs and go for it. Make new tracks. We're moving the agency into a train shed that was built in 1920, so I'm all screwed up about train metaphors, so I apologize. We've gone from new digs to new tracks. But I do think it's what we do. We lay new tracks for clients, for brands, for our people, and for our community. I believe that. I could talk about that, and I'm not going to. But I think it's important for you guys to constantly put yourself into new track positions. Your work will be defined by the experiences you have as a person. So I would make it a goal to lay new tracks in your life. All right? Put yourself out there, do new things, draw from them. And I don't think there's any shortage of that now. That will get harder the longer you go on. It just will. Last, value 10. When all else fails, have the most class. It took me a long time because I could get mad or I just couldn't sometimes maintain my composure in settings where once I learned to do it, it was enormously powerful. For all of the wonder of our industry, it is a business where everything ultimately stops working and somebody wants to find something that works or works better. It's inevitable. Everything becomes a failure at some point. The nature of the beast and the irony of that's what forces continuous innovation and the thirst for new ideas. And so you got to get into this. It's going to fail and we're going to have to preempt that by something new that works better. It makes it political. It can make it mean. It can make it hard. It certainly makes it unfair at times. When it starts going bad and people start acting badly, have the utmost class. Okay? Conducting yourself with class when an experience goes bad will always reward you with another experience. And in fact, you'll gain standing in the person who's there to take something away from you. They won't let on, but you will. And I can't tell you the amount of times where something's needed to end between us and a client, and the way we've handled it, and I don't think it's me, I think it's the organization, it's back to everything speaks culture, the way we've handled it has led to that person later coming back around and remembering it and rewarding us for that. It's a long game, all right? There you go. 10 values that I believe live at the crossroads of having been in a communications industry and your opportunity to turn us into an experience industry. And I think they're all under assault in some way. And I feel I'm a modern thinker and doer, and so is our organization, but there are forces against these 10 things that you guys, I feel, should watch for and hopefully eliminate, frankly. I would be remiss if I didn't say that it's all about the client's business. My dad gave me a thing when I started. It said, business is your world, advertising is just your door. My version of the sign now is business is our world, brand is just one of the doorways in. There are a lot of doorways in, but the business outcome is what we're all hopefully passionate about and certainly held accountable to. Okay? Do y'all want to suffer through a few examples of where we created an experience? Okay? This is something we did for the Partnership for a Drug-Free America. It was the first ever non-traditional communications war on drugs, all right? And so this was for meth. Hopefully that's not something any of you all have tried or are tempted to try, although it's amazing where it can be found in all levels of our society. So these were different installations. This was a shed we put in parking lots. We painted a blast radius around it. And it said, boom, if you can read this, you're already dead. And it was an experiential creation that sort of disrupted these small town C&D County town seat settings and got people talking. There's a homeless newspaper in Nashville called The Contributor. We did pro bono creative campaigns for them. Tom Cock and Don Bailey in our office had the idea to make the entire issue at the holidays wrapping paper. And so our creative team designed 10 of the wrapping paper, and then the vendors, as they call them, which are homeless people. This is a business for them. It's not just a charity. They designed 10, and so it has a functional use, and I feel therefore created an experience when it was given. This was a finalist in the Jay Chiat Awards. It didn't win. This is what won. We created something called the social experiment, which was to take people's phones away from them, and it was about 5 years ago, so it was before that became done by some people. It led to a spot for Chiat. Camille, all right, here's where I need you. All right, I got to play something. Don't know how to do that. I can try, but I might bring up macroeconomics class or something. It's the next slide.
All right.
Okay, now it's your test.
Is that it?
Nope. It's that. Click play. Well, that makes a lot of sense. It hasn't. Okay. Oh, look at this. This was the spot.
There was a time when being social drove people to houses, not homepages. Doorbells rang more frequently than cell phones. Entire neighborhoods found time to be more neighborly. Occasionally, someone still finds their way back.
Rediscover the lost art of getting together. Chiat, you're invited.
Okay, and that's China. It's not for you guys, so I get it's a little odd. We worked with Goodyear to help their Gemini dealers learn how to sell tires to women. And here's what they all did. You want me to call your husband about that? And so it was this whole sort of journaling into the local Goodyear behavior around a woman who walks through the door needing tires. You talk about pissing somebody off or alienating them. And so Michelin had done, you know, when so much is riding on your tires, they had this emotional war chest for her. Goodyear had no participation in that. And so we didn't create any communications except this fun little logo, which was internal, but we helped them change the way they sold tires to a certain huge growing part of the consumer, you know, population. Really interesting and fun work. We did this is for a number of organizations behind malaria, one of which was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And so this was part of a campaign that helped raise $75 million to take really communications infrastructure into Africa to combat malaria, to teach people about the disease. And this was an app that you could download and set it, and it would emit a signal that kept mosquitoes away from you. And so in your sort of backyard in, you know, Columbia, South Carolina, right? Each download raised money, all right? So pretty cool. And I think we did this in partnership with a class at Vanderbilt. This is something for Crocs, which was a wall, interactive wall to sort of input qualities about you that would then serve you Crocs that fit your style as a person. And it was all connected through an app and social content, and ultimately drove to one-to-one experiences through loyalty. Croc the runway. Okay. This was for Auric vacuum cleaners, and I'm sure you guys aren't vacuum cleaner customers yet, but this was the strategy idea. What if a vacuum cleaner could pick up your thoughts? Which was this Dyson is from a royal guy in Britain, and it's sort of very cool, but it's all about him. And what if a vacuum could be built that was all about you and what you want? So the product innovation came out of this line. Auric, a lot goes into it, became the tagline, and it was all about sort of this more practical, intuitive, sort of Subaru approach to vacuum cleaners, driven by that sort of idea, which, Marshall, hopefully is the kind of thing you're sticking on the wall in your work. Okay, test 2. A couple things to go, and then I'll be done. This is a case study for American-born moonshine, which Swan knows a little bit about.
Moonshine. In 2013, it was a category just waiting for a shot of authenticity. Waiting for one brand to stand up and tell the real story behind the liquor that fueled and still fuels America's rebel spirit. It was American-born moonshine that answered that call, with a product introduction that harkened back to the days of Prohibition, when the business of illegally running moonshine from the mountains to the speakeasies was at its peak. It started by seeding the rumor of a Nashville moonshine run, then leaving behind clues as to what was to come by driving consumers to NashvilleRun.com, where they encountered more clues to help unravel the mystery. In the next few weeks, a series of underground gatherings helped fuel the excitement, culminating in a large-scale event, hosting over 1,200 key industry influencers, all taking place in what was rumored to be an old Nashville smuggling site during Prohibition. All of these pre-launch tactics seemed to work. In fact, they may have worked too well, because the Tennessee Alcoholic Beverage Commission actually raided the company's corporate headquarters, looking for bootleggers running an illegal moonshine operation. Then one evening in late October, American-born moonshine, true to its heritage, made its arrival in Nashville under the cover of dark. It wasn't long after the first cases and distinctive point-of-sale pieces were delivered to liquor stores and bars throughout Nashville that the accolades really started pouring in. Named Best New Spirits Brand by major distributor Best Brands. Named Drink of the Month by Nashville Lifestyles. Named Best New Product by Beverage Industry News. The buzz kept building as American-born moonshine earned more than 457,000 social media post impressions, with celebrities like Jason Aldean, George Strait, Miley Cyrus, and others posting unsolicited about the brand on Instagram and Facebook. At the end of the day, the brand that made its first run under the cover of Night exceeded case sale expectations by 238%, with an 87% sell-through rate, making it the most successful brand launch in the history of Best Brands Incorporated. All of this allowed American-born moonshine to ramp up production and start making runs all across the country, and they're still picking up speed.
It's funny when you call the client and you say, how's the day going? He's like, we just got raided by the Tennessee Department of whatever and whatever. I said, cool, let's put that on social media. He's like, no, all the investors will leave. So we couldn't really do much with it, but it is true. And you talk about creating an experience, it's sort of the ultimate compliment. 2 to go, and they're just more advertising because I'm not hating on advertising, I love it. I just think there's more to it than that. So this is a TV spot for Trex decking.
If the sky is the greatest light show on Earth, we humbly offer a way to design and build a worthy stage. Trex, engineering what's next in outdoor living.
We took Trex. This was a pitch we beat Mullen for, and they're great. And we took them the idea of next as the next strategy for the organization. Swan worked on it, and they have done amazing things with that strategic insight. We've done communications. They've turned the call center into a concierge center, all kinds of things that are powerful. So I credit them as really striking the potential of the strategy and doing something with it. The last thing I'll show, and then I'll take any questions or let y'all go to your weekend, is for ServPro, which is a great client of ours. And it's an appropriate conclusion for me because when we met ServPro in 2003, fall of 03, it was a $400 million company. Today they're $2 billion. And we really are their full service partner. So I don't know if you know what they do. It's fire and water cleanup and restoration. So they're green vans. And the brand idea we brought to them is like it never even happened, which has really been the axis around which they've sort of revolved most of their growth and a lot of their decisions. And when I talk about the franchisees and riding in the vans, and we couldn't get to like it never even happened if we didn't immerse ourselves in the way the field sort of lives the business. So this is from Eyeball, New York, which is a production partner that we worked with to build a campaign. And this is their making of video, which it's just kind of cool to watch. So I thought y'all might like that. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm through preaching at you all. Thanks for listening to me. It's fun to talk to you. I'm cognizant of what time it is and what day it is, but if there are any questions, I'll do my best. Amanda.
Unfortunately, I've had to use ServPro before
Yeah.
after a water thing broke on the second floor and we had about $20,000 damage.
Oh, God.
In our house. And I've actually used that insight of like it never even happened before because because you're just standing there going, I just want this
Right.
to be the way it was.
Right.
I don't know if because it sounded like it was a few years ago, but how did you guys arrive at that insight? Was it just people standing there in their ruined house crying, going, I just want it to be the way it was?
Two ways, and this is back to value number 2. So first, our brand planning team, for lack of a better phrase, we didn't call it that then, I asked them to chart the emotional sort of chapters you go through in 4 situations. Home flood, home leak, home fire. 6, business flood, business leak, business fire. And they're different. Fire's a fear at the beginning. There was a common sort of sense of loss of control. You don't know what to do. And before ServPro created this category, nobody knew that people who do this existed. Got a plumber, got an uncle, got a guy, got a bucket, got a mop, got a fan. $20,000 job's a big one. So that was part of it. And we decided that what we wanted to do was position the brand not along that spectrum or right after the job was done, but like way out there in the ultimate, like life's back to normal. 1, that was the in the office stuff. 2, teams went out and we rode in vans to jobs and we sat and listened on the call center. We asked to do this as part of our pitch. So we brought them like it never even happened in the pitch. And we were I wasn't there, we were at a kitchen table, a breakfast table in Birmingham, Alabama. 2 of our strategists, journalists, and a franchise team and a homeowner who had had a situation not unlike yours, not quite as big. And the guy said, all right, we're gonna make this like it never happened. So all we did is add the even. But we were out there, and so it was authentic, and to me it's perfect when you put yourself in a position to sit in the middle of an experience, hear the things, bring them back. It was obviously debated and ultimately tested against a bunch of other stuff, but it sort of was born from the real fabric of the organization. And so I talk a lot about that's listen and translate. So to answer your question, and then ready for whatever happens is when they did a whole readiness initiative. And so they own like it never even happened on the back end and ready for whatever happens on the front end. That's their way to book in the experience. I'm sorry you had to deal with them. I did too, because my middle child left the sink running upstairs. And so the whole ceiling down below his room fell in. So Rush, and that's how Rush is. I love him to death. Yeah.
So a lot of people in this audience, right, are beginning their careers, but it
Right.
seems quite obvious that there are a lot of future leaders around here, right? As a leader, you talked a lot about culture. Is that something that you try to drive or try to foster the environment and let that grow?
I think first you have to decide what sort of culture you want. And we, as an organization, I didn't get clear enough about that for a while. And so I think that's the leader's job, is to say, I want it to be like this. And then I feel that the best thing you can do is get great at hiring. Because if you can get the talent that also has the values that fit that cultural picture, then your job's just to kind of get out of the way of it. Our cultural power, strength, solidarity, momentum I have so little to do with it. It is all about the people who are at all the other levels of the organization. And I also think the next step of growth and all the value for us is in those people as well. And so somebody was saying in the past 2 days I've been here that sort of they got to just, who the heck was it? We give people things and say, what's your take on this? And I don't want them to know anything about it, because their take on it, not knowing anything, is going to be more valuable than, or as valuable than everybody's take who's supposed to know everything. And so I don't think that's part of my culture answer, but I think it's part of that part of organizations can do amazing things. I just feel like my job is to sort of say it's somewhere over here and let's go toward that. And so we do, we had a birthday party for Betty White. Okay? And I don't know that I would have come up with that, right? Probably wouldn't have, but people wanted to do it. We had a good time. It was all good. And so, I think it's, I don't think vertically and I don't think about our organization vertically, but I think cultural strength and cultural momentum is decentralized, for sure. Or should be, yes.
So thank you for going through all those values. I really, it was a great reminder for me as someone that's in the workplace, who's been in the workplace for 10 years, of the mindset, of how to approach work. Because all these folks out here are probably going to be applying for jobs soon, what are some of the questions that you might ask to sort of evaluate if people or candidates subscribe to those values?
That's a great question. I was afraid somebody would ask me that. I really was. Thank you for the compliment. I spend a lot of time asking people what they like to do and what they like to read and what brands they appreciate as a consumer and what their passions are. I don't talk much about, I never look at a resume first. And I have an assistant and she says, here's the resume, and I turn it over on purpose. I think you got to do them, but I don't personally want that to cloud or inform my reaction to a human being. And then I talk a lot with people about what makes them tick. And what I'm looking for is wide-eyed, energetic, humble enough, talk with their hands, look me in the eye. Later, I always appreciate a thank you note that's handwritten. And I've gone on record in an interview of saying, if there's a tiebreaker that's needed, that will get you my tie-breaking vote every time. And we've made hiring for people that fit those values a total team sport. So if you're coming into our organization, I want all of us to either make the perfect choice or all of us to make the wrong choice. But we don't narrow so you're going to meet with 8, 10, 12, 15 people. You're going to go to lunch with 4 people. And so I think we're probably hunting for how everything speaks you feel in our own sort of organization. Does that make sense? And I probably, the reason we're getting it right is I have less and less to do with it. So we're big-ish, but small enough that the wrong hire at any level blinks like this. And I've gotten a few right and a bunch wrong. So I try to talk people out of the job a lot. Like, I want you to want the job so bad you can deal with my sort of battering ram of, and it's just not because I don't want them to come. It's a test. It's a test of their drive and will and tenacity and ambition for what we do. So, and I applaud the Martin Agency's cultural consistency, as I understand it, and I always have. So I know some of those guys, and I think they create an environment that cares a lot about people. And I think that's easy to lose in this business, where it can get really competitive or really backhanded or really underhanded or really inappropriate, and then it becomes normal. And so not letting that happen or rescuing something where that's begun to take root is really powerful. What else? Yes?
Is there something that stands out of your mind, whether it was in a business decision or a pitch, that you wish you would have done differently?
Oh, man. There's so many. There's so many things I wish I'd done differently than things I'm glad we did the way we did. No, I mean, I'll tell you in an hour when the right answer comes. I think I don't know. We make more mistakes than we make lemonade as people, I feel. So there's so many answers, it's hard to pull a great one out. I think it took us a long time. People say the client won't take a risk, or the client's the big problem. I heard that earlier. They have so many things that they do besides approve or unapprove or ask for more from us that it's easy to forget that. So I think we try to not ever forget their sort of whole pie too. And it has nothing to do with your question. I think it's just, I'm thinking through how we relate to the person on the other side of the desk from us. But I don't know. I'm sorry, I have to think about it. It's a terrible answer. I hope that's not the last question. He was the guy that couldn't come up with an answer. But if you're going to the next thing, I'll kick it around. I'll put it on tumble dry. Anything else? Probably there have been times where we felt deep down that we knew and believed that the problem wasn't a problem we could solve. It wasn't a marketing problem, an advertising problem, a messaging problem, a media plan problem, a digital social content problem. Their stores were in the wrong place. Or all the merchandise that should have been at the front was all at the back. And so anybody that walked by thought there's nothing in there for me, when in fact there was. But until all that got fixed, they didn't really need what they had come to us to do. And instead of saying that, we tried to answer their problem when in fact some other stuff had to happen. And so I think that's probably abstract, but that's an answer. What I feel we do well now under Everything Speaks is we see all those dynamics. We put them together in the way we start talking with our clients or prospects early. And we may not have anything to do with turning the call center into a concierge center, but it happens because we've put our finger on those different touch points from our strategy step forward. Does that make sense? And that takes courage, because somebody may go, well, that's fine, but we like that part of our business, and so we don't want to talk to you anymore about this stuff. You got to be ready for that. But I'd rather tell somebody the truth than take their money knowing that I can't fix their problem. We're not there to take somebody's money believing that we can't help them. It's not what we do. So.
What do you see as the greatest challenge facing advertising brand building in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think, I'm not sure enough people want to get into it. And I'm glad you all do. Or if you didn't, I hope you now do, or I hope I didn't send you the other way. I just think, you asked me, I think our biggest challenge is finding enough right talent. And it's not enough talent, and it's not right talent, it's enough right talent. And we're in Nashville, so it's the poster child for cool places to move, and I welcome you all there. But your passions and your skills and your values can lead you successfully into so many different careers that I didn't get to choose from. There wasn't Facebook when I got out of here. There weren't all these innovation and startup and, in my sort of imagination, cause and social branding and social value and CSR. All these things are new, and so I find great people who aren't, I'm down to Buntin or Martin or Mullen. I'm down to branding or a tech startup or this. And so the first sort of step of our battle in finding enough right talent is them wanting to be in the business we're in. Then I got to out sort of fox all the other agencies or startups or design shops or content firms or Twitter or whatever that are also vying for that person. So it's just a multiplicity of challenges of finding the right people. And we have 25 people who have been in our company over 10 years and about 50 who have been there in under 12 months, 20 months. And it's an awesome dynamic. And millennials get a bad rap. They're helicopter parents and they need a hug. And our team is amazing. So I haven't experienced that. It's another reason I reject these labels. But we're, passionate about talent and values, talent and values, talent and values, talent and values, talent and values. Talent might help the client, but could wreck the agency culture. Values could be fun at the coffee machine, but not have enough talent to help the client. I need people that can help our clients first and our agency second. And the biggest impact that our people are making, they're making it, the ones who are brand new or have been there less than a few years, are driving the momentum from a people perspective. There's no question. So, but it's hard to find. I want enough people to want to do this. And it's another side of fragmentation. Yeah.
What's your favorite book?
God, I don't read. I just read, who was I talking to about it? Yes, what's the title of it? Hillbilly Elegy. I didn't read it because I'm trying to understand our political situation. I read it because my brother and brother-in-law said to, and I grew up on a farm, and I think I appreciate and can relate to sort of the way that author experience. So I read it in 23 hours. My brother reads more books in a month than I read in a decade. And I'm embarrassed about that. I'm a horse guy, so I read the American Pharaoh story. But I don't know that that's my favorite book, but that's a recent book that I would recommend. Yes?
You know, to me, it seems like your first two values, in a certain respect, kind of add up to the fourth one, which is see what's in common. When you get a new client, how do you get to what's in common? Because that seems like a really powerful thing to find and a really difficult thing to find.
I think it's the result of the picture of the people with the shovels and the pick. It's just because we go down, there's a process and we follow it, and I do believe in, at least path is the word I use, that like if we are curious about the same things in the right order every time, we get to our best work. And we got documents that sort of make sure all that stuff's right, and it's part of where we've grown up as an agency, is to be more consistent about that so we can scale up as opposed to just, it's all intuitive. I think some of it's intuition. I think a lot of it's just digging and humble. Like, I don't know, I start with maybe a theory or a hypothesis, but I don't think I start with the answer. So we are probably digging in the right ground, but we don't know that we're going to stop 3 feet down because we found what we thought we would. I want us to keep going. And so getting to what's in common and it's the soul of people, you got to get a lot under your fingernails. And so I don't know how often people really give themselves the time or have the humility or energy for that. But I would say it's anthropological. It's, you know, you guys still got the dig out here in the spring, right? Like the ultimate spring term class. You got to go in the dirt. We do a lot of what do we learn, what do we see, what are we thinking? We get it on the wall, and you start to build muscle around the ability to see like things and push those sticky notes together. We want to find those, and then we socialize them around the idea people. So can we do something with this commonality? If we can't do anything with it, it may be in common but not helpful. So I think all those things are part of the way we're in search of that. We try to talk a lot to the people that work for the given client, not just their consumers. Ideally, there's commonality in the people working in the stores and the people shopping in the stores and the people at the home office, and then you've got sort of the values start to really come together. And I think that can be, it doesn't happen all the time, but that's exciting. So. Okay, anything else? Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it. Appreciate it.